Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Audible, sir. Namaskar, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay. I don't think I'll have much time because the mobile charge is running out. Anyway, I'll try to be as brief as possible. Yeah, that was a very um, exhaustive talk which we have heard, and Professor Mahanti has taken a lot of strains to highlight the critical thinking part of it, philosophy, concentrating on some thought experiments. Well, I will come to that towards the end of my talk. Let me start with two anecdotes. Those who have seen or read Patrick's book, Introduction to Philosophy, Patrick cites the case of that in the beginning, he cites the case of a little girl. The girl was looking outside the window, and she stood there for some time, and then suddenly asked her mother, "Mother, why it is that the world came into being?" And thus she became a philosopher. That is the comment of Patrick. I will also cite another case of a very famous philosopher. Name is called Kripke. When Kripke was about 5 years old, he was playing outside, and suddenly he came home and looked for his mother. He found that his mother was doing something in the kitchen. So he went to the kitchen, stood at the threshold, did not enter into the kitchen. And from outside the kitchen, he asked his mother, "Mother, is it true that God is everywhere?" And his mother said, "Yes, dear. Why do you ask?" Then the child replied, "Then I cannot come to you. I wanted to come to you, but I cannot come to you because if you enter into the kitchen, then I will have to replace God. Because he is there also in the kitchen." Now, these are two cases of thinking seriously. These children, they were thinking, doing some serious thought. The girl who asked the question, "Is it true that why the world came into being? Why at all the world came into being?" That was a very serious question. And to this, number of answers can be given and have been given by different people. And the other case was a case of the awareness. The little boy, Kripke, was aware of the fact that no two things can occupy at the same time, occupy the same place at the same time. So God, and if God is there, then he cannot be there to occupy the space in the kitchen at the same time. This is one of the principles of logic. In both cases, he gave flashes of serious thinking. I'm not talking of critical thinking now. I'm talking of serious thinking. Any thought or any thinking that is serious is philosophy. So this difficult question, what is philosophy, is difficult in this sense that serious questions can be asked in many ways about many things, and answers can be given in many ways. My point is, if you are doing philosophy, then you are largely doing some serious thinking. Sometimes this seriousness of the thinking becomes more than what is necessary, and then you are drawn into areas where you are not supposed to tread. So we have been believing in many things, including in this serious way of thinking. We have been thinking about many things, not only about the world, not only about empirical facts, nor only about relations of ideas that Professor Manthi has cited the case of Hume, nor doing both the things. We also go beyond these things, and we go into assuming or speculating many things beyond this world, beyond the matters of fact and existence, beyond relations of ideas. We go beyond that, and we speculate on other world. You speculate a kind of way in which Plato conceived of the idea of forms, of the world of ideas, and then we not only speculate about them, we also put a kind of preference on them. This is how the really real and apparently real, this distinction was made in philosophy. The distinction between the metaphysical and the physical came to be made. Now, here, and then when I talked about, when I gave the example of Kripke, implicitly giving vent to the idea that no things can occupy the same place at the same time. This is the principle of logic. This shows that human thinking, the nature of the structure of human thinking is such that you cannot think illogically. Whether you are trained in, whether you have formal training in logic or argumentation, that doesn't matter. But you cannot think illogically. That shows. That is why this little child was worried about not being able to get into the kitchen to go to his mother, because he was implicitly thinking about the principle of law of non-contradiction. You see, this is how philosophizing can be described as a kind of serious thinking. But the seriousness should have its limits. Seriousness should not end up in wild speculations. So, three things I will point out. Two important things about the nature of philosophy or the features of philosophy. One is logic and the other is critical thinking. And the third is ethics. Now, when you are, therefore, doing philosophy implies, doing philosophy means you would be engaged in these three things together or with one at a time. So you have to be a critical thinker in all these three cases. I would like to think that philosophy is the same thing as critical thinking, but that is not the case, because other people who are also not doing philosophy but concerned with other things like management, finance, and all those things, and even politics, they are also doing critical thinking. That is also necessary. But the most important feature of philosophy is doing critical thinking. So you have to examine, assess, and analyze the arguments, their validity, and that is why philosophical critical thinking can be said to be, it has been also described in certain dictionaries as philosophical analysis of arguments. Now, I will give you here we Professor Mahanti referred to toward the end of his lecture. He referred to critical thinking being open to acceptance of others' views. Along with that, it must also be possible for a philosopher or a critical thinker to be willing to give up one's own idea. It is true that it is natural that you defend your own ideas, but you should not defend your own idea blindly. You have to find out, you have to provide rational justification for your ideas. If you find that somebody else's idea is more rational, then you should be willing to accept it. So that is how a philosopher should be above egocentricity. He should be above sociocentricity also. What is sociocentricity? That is the tendency to think that a particular idea, particular practice must be good because it is the practice followed in your own society. You have to go beyond that. Because a philosopher, as a critical thinker, must be a responsible, open-minded, unbiased citizen. And in this way, you will not only think about your own ideas, you have to think about the ideas of others, you have to think about not only your social practice, but the practice followed in other societies as well. And then the question of comparison and interpretation will be relevant. The thought experiments which Professor Mohanty so elaborately explained, they are the paradigm cases of critical thinking, where logic works, where open-mindedness works, and where in these cases of thought experiments, whatever you accept will be based on one rational ground. I will give you an example of a very famous thought experiment that was made popular by Sidney Shoemaker in his self-knowledge and self-identity. It so happened that two people came to a doctor for the treatment of the brains. There was some problems with them. And the doctor, one was, two people were named Robinson and Brown. So he cleaned, he opened their skulls, took out their brains, cleaned them. So far that was all right. But in the process, this doctor made a mistake, serious mistake. He put Brown's brain in Robinson's body and Robinson's brain in Brown's body. So this is a mistake that occurred. And in the process, what happened? One of the persons died, and the person with Robinson's body and Brown's brain survived. And this person, let us Shoemaker calls him Brown's son. Robinson's body and Brown's brain. So that is a thought experiment. What happened then? The question would be, who will be this person? Will Brownson be the same person as Robinson? Or will he be the same person as Brown? This is the thought experiment. Now what the philosopher is supposed to do here? You will have to observe. You will have to find out a rational basis for whatever answer you will give. And this person, it was observed that this person, with Robinson's body and Brown brain, started behaving like Brown. This Brown son started behaving like Brown, although he had the whole body of Robinson. So what are you going to do? You naturally you'll have to say that yes, he must be Brownson, must be the Brown, because he behaves like Brown. But then the question is, but he doesn't have the body of Brown. It's a different body. There, your rational explanation would be that he has physical continuity is not there, continuity of the body is not there, but in some sense continuity of the body is there. At least that bodily part, which is the most important in a person's consciousness, memories and other things, that is brain, that is continuing. And if that is continuing, then despite the fact that the rest of the body is not continuing, the most important physical part is continuing, and therefore there is also physical continuity. Not only that, physical continuity which explains also the mental content. Now, this is how you deal with thought experiments. And when you come up with one answer, you have to give reasoned explanations. Now, rationality is something which has to be also uh, explained a little bit elaborate. Rationality does not mean that it is logical certainty. Rationality means that which holds logical certainty is not the matter, because logical certainty is one extreme, pure probability is another extreme. In between that, you have to find out an intermediary explanation. So, a critical thinker, while doing philosophy, doing philosophy means engaging in critical thinking, and that means you are supposed to be a rational thinker, and a rational thinker is not supposed to be extremely or accept extreme view like logical certainty, because rationality is that which A.J. in his problem of knowledge has made a distinction between logical certainty and factual certainty. It is not one certainty that is there. There is logical certainty which applies in case of mathematics, geometry, mathematics and formal logic. But that doesn't mean that we cannot be certain about anything factual. Yes, we can be. We cannot be absolutely certain that the sun is going to rise tomorrow, but we can be as certain as we can be. So this factual certainty. Therefore, Ayer said that it would be rather irrational to demand logical certainty in an area where it is not forthcoming. So rational thinking is this. You have to be rational, because rational in the sense that you must not demand logical certainty in the realm of facts. Yes, you can look for logical certainty in case of mathematics, geometry, and formal logic. Therefore, you have to, if Wittgenstein had taught us, the first person and first philosopher to give us the idea that philosophy is a critical thinking, critique of language, philosophy is the critique of language. So you have to be clear about the workings of your language. And in this endeavor, you have to be clear about the different areas. Hume made a distinction between relations of ideas and matters of facts. All right. But beyond that, there is something called thinking about the world in a dispassionate way. Two things that are important here. You have to be careful that you have to give up this idea. Philosopher, while doing philosophy, you have to give up two things. One is the sense of absoluteness, and the other is the sense of absolute. You should not run after absolute certainty. And you should not also entertain absurd ideas, the absurd being illogical. Something which is illogical, something which is self-contradictory, something which cannot be logically maintained, that also should not be entertained. That you have to be very careful about. So philosophizing requires this. I will give an example of how to avoid an absurd idea or illogical idea. I mean, in many cases we are become victims of that. Take the case of our doctrine of God in India. I take this, I'll present this as a case of piece of critical thinking. Our doctrine of karma believes what? It believes that you, as you sow, so shall you reap. That means you will reap the consequences of your action. It assumes, one, that every action has certain consequences. Two, that the consequences must be experienced by the doer. And three, because he deserves them. All right. Every action shall have certain consequences which the doer must experience because he deserves them. Therefore, if you take it in an absolute sense, then you think that every action, every doer must reap the consequences of his action. But we find that in one life, people do not reap the consequences of all their actions. In many cases, we have found that good people suffer and bad people prosper. Answer to that: how can you explain this? Well, it has been tried to explain that yes, if you have not reaped the consequence of your action in this life, you will do it in a different life. So, rebirth, reincarnation, all these things becomes, the belief in rebirth becomes an integral part of the law of karma. Now, my point is, once you entertain this idea, then there is a problem, because after the physical death of the person, how can you be sure that the person who claims to have done this or remembers having done something is the same person actually who has done this? How? That means, how can you distinguish between real remembering and apparent remembering, or seeming to remember, quasi-memory? You cannot do that in the absence of the physical continuity, because the person has died. Therefore, the law of karma is now based on this kind of argument, belief in rebirth, which cannot be logically sorted, logically sustained, logically cannot be logically maintained. So what you have to do? You have to find out a solution. An idea which is absurd in the sense of being illogical cannot form the basis of such a very important theory that is called doctrine of karma. So you have to say why you are bound to accept this, because you sort of assume that the person must reap the consequence of his action. No, he deserves it. But all those things that we deserve did not be experienced at all. So that kind of, only the possibility that you may experience it in this life is enough to make the man moral, enough moral incentive not to do things which are bad and do things which are good. So that kind of analysis would be critical thinking. This is one example I wanted to cite. So critical thinker must avoid two things. As I said, absoluteness and absolute. Now critical thinking therefore must go beyond egocentricity, must be ready to give up his own ideas, own theory, own point of view, in preference to somebody else's point of view, if that is found to be more rational. Rationality means this. So this sort of uh, this way of doing critical thinking is the way of doing philosophy. So doing philosophy means thinking seriously, thinking critically, and thinking responsibly. You must be responsible. You must be responsible citizen, and you must be open-minded. You must be open-minded enough to entertain other ideas, even if it is not your own. So, going beyond egocentricity, going beyond sociocentricity, these are all important aspects of doing philosophy. And the other thing is moralizing. Ethics is one important part of philosophy. Now you have to moralize. Now when you moralize, there are also certain things must be very uh, borne in mind, because uh, um, uh, usually moral theories are said to be objective and infallible. Now, when you accept that, then moral theories cannot be, may appear to be inapplicable or difficult to apply when it is applied without any condition. Now, there, what is important in that? You have to, in most cases, our celebrated theories like speaking the truth, for example, cannot be, appears to be difficult to apply. Because if you speak the truth, then it may lead to certain consequences which are undesirable or even morally disastrous. I have cited this case several times, because that is in the Mahabharata. Rishi Kausika saw some passersby hiding in the bush near where he was practicing penance, because they were chased by certain dacoits. And when the dacoits came and asked him about the passersby, he spoke the truth. And the result was disastrous, because they were dragged out of the bushes, looted, and when they tried to protest or resist, they were killed. So he spoke the truth, and the result was morally disastrous. That means that seems to be a gap between ethics and its application. Now there also you need some critical thinking. Doing philosophy requires that you have to be very careful about what you think about your moral theories. Yes, they are objective. They are objective. But they can be also validated under sufficiently demanding situations. In the same scripture Mahabharata, it is mentioned that Rishi Kausika had to go to hell for some time for having spoken that piece of truth. That means this scripture also requires that the person should not speak the truth unconditionally. He must be aware of the situation, and in some situations, some theory may be violated, and that would be justified violation. Now, giving the example, in the Gita theory of dharma, we have two types of dharma: Swadharma and Sadharana dharma, Samana dharma. Now, Arjuna, the Bhagavad Gita was it came into be formulated because Arjuna faced a moral crisis. He said, "Yes, I am a Kshatriya, and I must fight But fighting means killing. So on the other hand, I am basically a human being. Why should I kill? And that kind of moral crisis was posed before Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna went on telling him, "You do your karma." So much so that it can give an impression that Gita theory of dharma is simply a treatise on Swadharma. But that is not the case. All that Lord Krishna was advising was that by implication he was saying that yes, both the dharmas are categorical imperative. They are normally inviolable. But here, under the demanding circumstances, what is the demanding circumstances? In the case of a just war. So, in view of the just war, Arjuna should do his swadharma and his samanya dharma or sadharana dharma of non-killing would remain suspended there. So, this is what is even in the Gita. By implication, this has been suggested. That would, what happened? Arjuna performed his swadharma, forgot about his sadhana dharma. That was allowed to remain suspended, and then the Mahabharata war was well done, and dharma was reinstated, and things were taking that in that particular sense. And there may be criticism, but the critical part of it here is that you have to relook, you have to revise your opinion about a particular theory. That moral theories are objective and inviolable. No, they are normally objective and inviolable, but they can be violated under sufficiently demanding circumstances. That is what we call justified violation. Now, the fact that it has been violated and the Arjuna's sadharana dharma, samanya dharma remains suspended does not mean that became a disvalue. No, that is still a value. But the value remains suspended there. The particular important fact is that the idea of applied ethics is this, that ethical theories must be applied because they are theories which are meant to guide us to conduct our lives effectively and successfully. So they must be applied. If they are not applied, there must be some theoretical difference. This is how you do philosophy. This is how you moralize. So critical thinking applies in all these cases. So doing philosophy, therefore, is engaging in critical thinking, and critical thinking, therefore, engaging in critical thinking means you are engaging in impartial, unbiased judgments, unbiased reasoning, so that you can come up with the best decisions. What is important is this: you have to come up with the decisions which are which will be the best for the society. So even a political thinker also, politicians also, good politicians also will have to consider these cases. Let me go and stand there because the charge is going to just give me just a second. Okay, I think so we can we can therefore think of doing philosophy in this way. Number one, it has to be serious thinking. Number two, it has to be balanced thinking. You must not go on thinking in a wayward manner, whatever happens, and then go on speculating anything and everything. Critical thinking therefore makes a person disciplined. A person who is doing philosophy must be a disciplined person, disciplined in his mind, in his thinking. And if he is disciplined in his mind and thinking, he will be a disciplined person in his actual life. So, never, you have to be very careful about, well, Thaneswar is there, he would bear with me, that whenever there is something which is irrational, which is mere speculation and blind speculation, unsupported by any argument, do not accept it. The scientific temper, the logical acumen, everything must be there. So all these things. So this exercise, the exercise of philosophy or philosophical activity, as you said, the method. This is the method of philosophy. So doing philosophy involves, or it means, doing this kind of rational thinking. And rational thinking, I have already made it clear. Rationality does not mean logical certainty. Because logical certainty is one absolute extreme. That has to be carefully avoided. Doing philosophy, therefore, so you see, A.J. Ayer in his Metaphysics and Common Sense, he in the beginning, the book starts with this also. What do you do? People sometimes ask me, I'm a philosopher. Oh, a philosopher? Oh, you must be doing something very serious. You can give me some serious advice, or maybe you can tell me something about religion and God and things like that. Now, all these things, or worst of all, the question is, what is philosophy? That is, what is question is something which is very tricky, because an easy answer may not be possible, but it is possible. Once you come down to the level of your attitude towards life, your attitude towards facts, and develop the type of rational and scientific temper, then you can very well explain this question, what is philosophy. Doing philosophy, therefore, requires some kind of seriousness, and the seriousness means that you should be unbiased and against superstition, against blind belief, against adhering to your own ideas blindly. So there is no place for superstition in doing philosophy. There is no place for wild speculation in doing philosophy. Doing philosophy can therefore make a man very rational, very, you can say, effective person who can guide you or help you guide in practical life. That can be possible. Now, the thought experiments that Professor Mahanti gave us, they are serious examples of critical thinking, and thought experiments have this merit of brushing up your mental capacities. You brush up your mental capacities and do not yield to unargued and irrational conclusions. So that way, doing philosophy helps you. Doing philosophy actually helps you. Being a rational and matter of fact person. So, and also a responsible citizen. That way, whether you are in the area of speculating, or in the area of analyzing language, or in the area of clarifying concepts, or in the area of all these things will help you in being a good guide to social life, to practical life, and to moral life. So this is how I would like to, because mostly I don't have much time and the charge will go off now. So thank you very much. Let us see how we can engage in some discussions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, sir. We offer our deep sense of gratitude for your thought-provoking speech on doing philosophy. Sir, you have reflected on how doing philosophy is a kind of serious thinking. It is a critical thinking. And you said how doing philosophy is engaging ones in critical thinking. It is an impartial reasoning, which lies examining, assessing, analyzing, and finding out the rational justification of a problem. For this, you have said philosopher must be open-minded, unbiased, and rational. You said that a philosopher must go beyond the egocentricity. And doing philosophy is thinking seriously, thinking critically, and thinking responsibly, which is the activity of a philosopher. And at last, you say that doing philosophy needs to be doing philosophy needs a person to be careful about one's morality and discipline in life. Thanks so much, sir. Now, I request Dr. K. Omnana Rao to carry on the interactive session.
Thank you, Dr. Mohana, and namaskar, everybody. Well, it was a very good webinar today. Both the sessions were really good and really thought-provoking. And well, I request Professor G.P. Das sir. Well, I think he's not there. Well, I request now Ranjit Ghosh sir to submit his observations or queries on both the talks. Well, G.P. Das sir, I don't think he's there.
Thank you, Dr. Rao, and we must pay our regards to our esteemed teachers, both of them. They were our teachers, and both of them have discussed about what is meant by doing philosophy. Now, to me, there is a commonality of version between both Professor Mohanty's and Professor Mohapatra's speech. But what I feel is this, that philosophy is so natural to human being that we used to do philosophy. Any man used to do philosophy without even knowing that he is doing philosophy. So that is why philosophy and human being, they are like two sides of the same coin so far as thinking is concerned. So that probably that is why it is said that it is the choice is between not between philosophy or no philosophy, but it is always between a good philosophy and a bad philosophy. Now, taking this into consideration, now the next thing is this, that when Professor Mohanty talked about thought experiment and the last man argument, what he referred, and along with other thought experiments, and Professor Mohapatra's Brownson experiment from Sidney Shoemaker's self-knowledge and self-identity. In both these cases, in all the thought experiments, we find the application of thought. Now, this application of thought or thinking is very much prominent in every type of philosophizing, whether we do it critically or we do it socially or we do it responsibly or we do it morally. Everywhere this thinking process or thought is given importance. Now, another thing I want to emphasize upon, which Professor Mohapatra has referred, the sociocentricity of thinking. That is actually the most important thing we have to keep in mind when we are making any thinking and we pursue it. Because rational thinking does not give logical certainty. This is what we have to always keep in mind. We may think rationally, but that thinking will lead us to a rational, to a logical certainty. The goal, it is not just possible always. And this is more so when we are thinking about the social context. So logical certainty in social context is normally not possible. And apart from this, one thing, when Professor Mohapatra was referring to karma and in Indian context, now in Indian context, darsana is used in some other way. That means it is the philosophy is associated with liberation. That as far as I remember, the Samhita says, Samyak darsana sampanna karma bhinna nibadhyate darsanena vihinastu sansaram pratipadyate. That means if we do not associate ourselves with darsana in Indian context, we are tied to the world and liberation is not just possible. So in this way, doing philosophy is a must for every person. And we philosophers, we try to systematize that thinking. This is the job what we used to do in Western context as well as in Indian context. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ghosh. Well, Professor Mohapatra sir, well, you want to say something on this, or sir, please unmute, sir. Sir, please unmute. Sir, your microphone is off, sir. Sir, are you speaking some? Sir, Mohapatra sir, your microphone is off. Prafulla sir, your microphone is off, sir. Yes, sir. Now
it's on now. Yes, I was listening to Ranjit's observation. He didn't ask me any question actually, but his observation, I entirely agree with that, because you see, in this context, only I want to add one thing: liberation or moksha is a very important part of Indian philosophy. In a way, Indian philosophy is described as moksha shastra. Okay, and moksha means, it has happened quite often that in this by moksha, our thinkers have kind of more leaning towards Videha Mukti. But actually, Videha Mukti as well as Jivan Mukti, both are important. Buddha was an example. Buddha was, he taught us his philosophy of Nirvana. But he did not say, he also advised the enlightened persons to delay their Nirvana, delay their Videha Mukti, and try to work for the people who are waiting to be liberated, to help them. Our Bhima Bhoi is saying, "Namo jivana pache narke padithau jagata uddhara pau." That kind of thinking is that liberation is important. But liberation must be also taken in such a way that it should not be thought to be liberation or Videha Mukti, and it should not be thought to be the liberation of an individual. Sarvamukti is a more important thing. Sarvamukti is a more important concept in Indian philosophy. So that way, yes, your observations I accept, and but I have this addition to discuss or to differentiate between Videha Mukti and Jiban Mukti, and even if you are you become an enlightened person, Buddha was a very practical philosopher. He said that even if you are an enlightened person, just help others to get liberated. So Sarvamukti is more important than individual liberation. Okay. That was good observation, Ranjit.
Thank you so much, sir. Well,
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Well, a very good take from.
Thank you very much, sir.
Well, we'll be calling you, sir. Well, the good take from Professor Ghosh is that, well, he has said that everybody does philosophy, whether he's conscious of that or not. So everybody is a thinker in that sense. So maybe we may not be conscious we are doing philosophy, but consciously or unconsciously we are involved in the philosophical activity because we are in the society, we are in the social roles. So being in the social roles, we may be doing philosophy that may be good or bad. Well, Professor Ghosh has made a differentiation between good and bad philosophy. So everybody is involved in that activity, whether we are conscious or not conscious. Well, I request Professor Dhaneshwar Sahu sir to make his observations.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible and visible.
Yes.
I pranam to both the teachers. Sir, the idea of critical thinking or scientific temper or rational approach to human problems, all these things have emerged only after the European Enlightenment and the progress of science. Sir, may I refer to one book which inspired me most, which I recently read. I don't know if my teachers or friends have read that book. That is 21st Lessons for 21st Century. In that book, 21st Lessons for the 21st Century, the writer, he is from Harari, by Yuval Noah Harari. He has mentioned how for generations together, people have not sought what truth is, but they believed in the idea of a post-truth. He has thoroughly discussed a concept which I did not know. That is the idea of a post-truth. We don't believe truth, but we have some set of beliefs, and we believe what we believe it to be true. And in that respect, he has shown how most of the ideas prevalent in most of the civilizations have done great harm to humanity or human society for thousands of years. Manusmriti in Indian context. He has cited many examples from Christian tradition, from Islamic tradition, from Hindu tradition, how so many wrong beliefs have ruined man's social life, man's moral life in the past. The idea that everyone has a right to live with dignity. We should have an open mind to seek truth, and we must believe in scientific attitude or scientific temper. All these things have brought sea changes in man's social life. In this context, let me conclude. In one television debate, I was in that television debate. A great scientist of Odisha, he was with me. The question was, should we believe in astrology or not? My humble submission was that astrology is a pseudoscience it is not at all a science. Astronomy is a science, but astrology is not a science. But the other scientist, other noted person, he argued in support of astrology, and not only that, he cited that rebirth is a fact, Jatismara. That means those who can remember their part, these are all realities and you cannot deny them. And because of his social position and because of his degree, he wanted to come down me. But I humbly put my views in that debate. So sometimes my feeling is even great personalities of society or those who have name, they also are carried out by this idea of on post-truth, not they don't have the real attitude to source the truth. This is my observation while I was listening to both of my teachers. This idea came to me, and Prafulla sir also referred to my name in his deliberation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I am a rationalist and I believe in the ideals of rationalism. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak some ideas what occurred to my mind. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. That was good. Dhaneshwar, I am also a rationalist,
sir.
but in a kind of
Sir, good.
limited manner. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Dhaneshwar Sahu, sir. Well, time is short. Well, one question let me take from the chat box. Well, Shravani Mishra, well, she says she's greatly inspired by both the talks, and she's inspired by the talk of Professor Mohapatra sir. Well, she connected with his last talk, "One Life is Enough," and she thanks him for his positive way of thinking and making talking of unbiased thinking and open to criticisms and that sort of thinking that should be inculcated to bring in alternative opinions in our life, and that makes life more positive and more open, and that's what is philosophy in the real sense. So thank you, Shravani madam. Well, there is a question by Smrutireka Nayak. Well, I'm not putting before anybody because she says, well, philosophy is not an opinion. Well, Professor Ghosh said that everybody does philosophy, so she is a bit confused. So we are bound to an opinion. Well, no, Smriti, well, we should not be, philosophy is not being confined to an opinion. Well, you may be having an opinion, but should have a respect for other opinions. As Professor Mohapatra said, we should be open for alternatives, and that is philosophy. Well, you may be strongly attached to an opinion, no matter. There is no issue in that, but you should be always open for other opinions in order to enrich your own opinion, in order to assert yourself in a better way, so that good things may come, so that truth will come out. So that is all about philosophy. And with Professor Mohapatra very rightly said, there should be openness in critical thinking, and that openness brings in to fore a lot of alternatives, so that the best things can finally come out, the truth can come out. So thank you, Smriti, for your question. Well, I request now, because time is short, well, I request Professor Pramod Kumar Das for his observations. Well, are you there? Pramod Kumar Das, sir. Yes. Yes, are you there? Well, I'm connected. Yes, please.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Namaskar to all of you. I enjoyed both the talks. I shall speak only one thing, that man is interested in two things, and man has two possibilities. One is the relation of ideas, that man can understand the relation of ideas, and man can also understand the matter of facts. These two possibilities are there: relation of ideas, that is conceptual understanding, and matter of facts, That is the understanding of the fact, understanding of the situation, understanding of the context, understanding of the practical contingency, practical necessity. And man is the only animal, rational animal, who is capable of understanding these two dialectical possibilities. One is the conceptual understanding and the other is the understanding of the fact. Both Saroj sir and Prafulla sir explained these two aspects. When we are doing thought experiment, we cannot make thought experiment without the fact. Saroj sir gave so many examples, the railway track, the fat man. These examples are about the facts, the situations of life. So without the content, without the object of understanding, we have nothing to understand. When we are going to understand something, there must be an object of understanding. Otherwise, it is only conceptual analysis, only linguistic analysis. But philosophy is not confined to, it's not trapped by any one of these two possibilities, two disciplines. So, a philosopher should not be biased by only conceptual analysis, which is good for nothing. If it is not practical, if it has no practical use. So, both matter of facts and conceptual understanding are necessary, and that this philosophy has been developed by Immanuel Kant, who said both the understanding and experience are necessary for the healthy epistemology and healthy philosophical activity. So I learned that from both these speakers, both our revered teachers, these two things, which has David Hume has made such a distinction between relation of ideas and matter of facts. So if only we shall think that philosophy is a critical thinking, philosophy is a critical analysis, that means we are trapped by only one activity of philosophy, that is the relation of ideas. Similarly, we should not be hardcore empiricist, radical empiricist, without giving the status of a mind, without giving the ability of a rational understanding. That is also one-sided. So if we nurture and culture both the possibilities, then we can have a complete personality and we can be a very beautiful asset for the society. Thank you. This is my observation.
Thank you, Pramod sir, for your observation. Well, I have a question for Professor Saroj sir. Well, both in philosophy and science, science and philosophy, we can never address it, or we can never arrive at a sort of finality. So even in philosophy, when we talk of ethical dilemmas, well, Professor Mohanty sir talked of various thought experiments. So whether these thought experiments are really resolving these dilemmas, whether my question is something like this, whether philosophy resolves ethical dilemmas. Well, I have at the back of my mind that philosophy can never arrive at the finality. Having this understanding, I pose a question. I have a question in my mind whether how far philosophy is useful, or say how far doing philosophy helps us in resolving ethical dilemmas, maybe through thought experiments or various other methodologies. Sir, please, sir. Professor Mohanty, sir.
Okay. Thank you for raising this question. Well, the thought experiments actually, they draw our attention to the consequences of certain possibilities. By certain things we are not aware of when we propose some certain things. But when you draw the consequences, had it been the case, then the consequences would have been this. Are the consequences acceptable to you? This way, we can test any theory or anything by drawing the conclusions or consequences of a particular theory. As Professor Mohapatra has been saying, that whenever you propose any theory of morality, see the consequences. So when we have this kind of discussions, that leads to certain kind of open-mindedness. People with philosophers become not absolutist. Professor Mohapatra has been all the time talking about certain principles that they have justified violations are there. I would not agree with that point. The theory has got justified applications. To say that a theory must be applicable everywhere is, we have alternative theories. A proper balance of these different theories. Suppose take the case of utilitarianism and the deontology of theory and virtue ethics. In ethics, if you are guided by only one, then there would be all sorts of, there are situations where we have to accept the deontological views. But there are situations where we have to take the consequences into account. How much harm is occurring, how benefit is occurring to how many persons. So that you have to do. So if we balance these things, different theories of every theory has got its own area of application. Instead of saying that I am a complete follower of one theory, or I advocate that everywhere we must be a deontologist, a follower of Kant, that or the view that utilitarianism is the right thing. This is not the attitude. Actually, in ethics or in matters of, in all these cases, they have their exceptions, which Professor Mohapatra has been emphasizing. I only point out that this applies only to, not only to deontology or theory that speak the truth or be or the principles of which are deontological principles, but you think about utilitarian view, the view that consequences matter. But in certain cases, consequences, whatever may be the consequence, we should not do certain things. As I gave you the example of the fat man who are pushing a fat man to stop a train. The consequences are same. You are killing one person by saving to save 5. But here, even number does not matter. How many lives are saved? That is immaterial. You are killing that one person, and that is never justified. So when you apply these principles, utilitarianism fails. Here, the deontological view that every object, every person has a dignity of its own, that should not be violated. If you have no right or you are not morally justified in pushing the fat man, even though here is also a case where we are killing one person to save 5 persons. But this thought experiment tells us the limitations of the utilitarian view. That hedonistic calculations, how many people are benefited, how many people are harmed, this doesn't justify certain our actions. Some actions are beyond this. There, the Kantian view is more appropriate. So we have to balance all these different theories. No theory is sacrosanct in the sense that it can never be violated. A point which Professor Mohapatra has been emphasizing, and his talk also, I really, it is an example of how philosophy should be done. I have been really much benefited by his talk also. I thank him for elaborating these points. And I have been thinking of in this way that the different theories he should take into account, that not only that one theory, but all the theory has their own limitations, in the sense that we must take into account all these different theories whenever passing judgments about moral truth. I think I must apologize for taking away the time of others by fumbling in holding the PowerPoint presentations from the beginning. And okay, it has been very beneficial, very instructive for me also to listen to Professor Mohapatra. And the questions also have been very illuminating. I thank Professor Ghosh and Dhaneshwar and Om for raising certain very good points in the discussion. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Sir, shall I add one thing?
Yes, sir. Welcome.
When we are discussing this issue, two things have to be kept in mind. One is the academic skepticism of Hume, and the other one is uncertainty by Wittgenstein, which discusses us the difference between possibility and certainty. That certainty is based on our fundamental attitude of trust. So these things are actually required. So far, if we want to think sincerely about philosophy and doing philosophy, these two things, the theories can help us in that line. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ghosh. Thank you, Mohanty sir. Thank you so much. So one thing I could get from all this is with principles, theories, various ideas, concepts, taking all these as tools, we need to understand the situation, we need to understand the context, we need to apply appropriately the right theory so that we can have the best possible consequences. So that is all life, that is all about life, because we want the life moving in the best possible way. So we have theories, we cannot fix ourselves to the particular theory, we cannot use any theory rigorously, so that would be drastic for the society, so hazardous for the society. So we need to take we need to have ideas of various theories, various principles, various concepts, and we need to take them appropriately in the right time, in the right context, so that we can keep the society moving and to have the best possible consequences. This is what I could get from Professor Ghosh and Professor Saroj Mohanty sir. Thank you so much, sir. Well, we have various other.
I have to thank Professor Dhaneshwar Sahu for bringing in the Harari's point of view that we should all read that book. That is a very good book. Harari is a very good writer, and I thank him for bringing him into the picture. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. Well, 9:05. We should end up now, sir. Yes. Yes. So, and I request now we shall move to Dr. Kailas Mana, sir, for carrying on the further proceedings.
Okay, now actually we enjoyed both the sessions. Now it is now the time is very short and it is already crossing 9. Now may I request Dr. K. now to propose a hearty vote of thanks to our teachers, Mohapatra sir and Mohanty sir, and to all the viewers who are connected with us.
Thank you, Dr. Maharana sir. Well, I should thank both the speakers. I should thank Professor Saroj Mohanty sir, Professor Mohapatra sir. At this age, they are still doing philosophy, and that makes philosophy rich. Okay, we don't find people after retirement, they enjoy life, but they're still connected with philosophy. They're still preaching us, still guiding us. So that shows how philosophy is so rich, and through their deliberations, we are still learning. So thank you so much, sir, both of you, because you are so close to our heart, and you are also very good person, sir. So that is philosophy. That is the richness in philosophy, being good. And you have rightly taken philosophy, sir, because you have understood life and you have understood what students are for you, and students constitute your life. We do understand, sir, because whenever we approach you, you so politely deal with us. So yes, do roll from our eyes, because we don't find such genuine persons these days. So at this age, you are still connected with philosophy, helping us, guiding us, and always encouraging us to do better and better. So thank you, sir. And both the talks have really enriched us, and they have really helped us to think ourselves in a better way. Thanks. I should thank both Professor Mohapatra sir and Professor Sarosh sir for being connected with us, blessing this philosophy family. I request both of them to be connected with us with further talks in future webinars of philosophy family. So I should thank again Professor Ranjit Ghosh sir, who continuously attends all the webinars of philosophy family. He's a great blessing for us, and he raises important questions, and really he is guiding us a lot, and we are really benefited by him, because he raises fundamental questions and he initiates the discussion, and the discussions go on, and we are learning, sir. Really, philosophy family is greatly indebted to Professor Ghosh too. And I also thank Dhaneshwar Sahu sir for his for his observations and about the book that he has talked of. And Professor Mahanti also said of going through that book. So I should thank even Professor Pramod Kumar Das for sharing his observations, and also thank our coordinator, Dr. Kailash Mana sir, for his synopsis, and also thank Dr. Jeevan Rajpura sir, who delivered 2 beautiful lectures in this forum, who is there now. We should have learned from him today. I should have invited him for some observations, but because of paucity of time, I could not invite him. Sorry so much, sir. But I should thank you for being connected with us, for helping us. And one thing is, in spite of, he's not from the philosophy fraternity, but still he loves philosophy and gives very good deliberations in philosophy. So I should thank all those. I should thank Professor G.P. Das sir for listening to both the talks. Some connectivity issue maybe he has left, and I should thank Anup Rai sir and other senior professors who attended this webinar and made this webinar so beautiful, so successful. So I should not forget the name of Shravani Mishra madam too, who raises who also attends all our webinars. So thanking all of you, all the participants. Now I have really enjoyed this webinar. I have learned from this webinar, and I hope that the senior professors, those who are connected with philosophy family, they will bless us so that we can do better and better. There may be some issues, there may be some deficiencies on our part. Please excuse us, so please bless us so that we can do better and better. So with this, I now move to Professor Kailash Mana sir for carrying on the further. So I thank everybody connected with this program. Thank you all.
Okay. Thanks so much, Dr. Rao, for your good the moderation and synopsis in all these sessions. And may I request Professor Pramod Kumar Das, the Armini, the convener and host of this program, to end of the session.